Hi everyone, welcome again to VLGA Connect, your weekly look at what's happening around the local government sector in Victoria, brought to you by Hunt and Hunt Lawyers. Coming up on the program today, I'm going to be joined by the Mayor of Campaspe Shire Council, Councillor Daniel Mackrell. That council has recently adopted a new zero tolerance statement about antisocial behaviour and abuse. We'll find out how they went about developing that and what prompted it in the first place. And later in the show, Tony Raunic is here from Hunt and Hunt Lawyers for his unique insights on some of the stories in the news these past couple of weeks. But first, let's catch up on what's been happening around the place this week with our VLGA Connect news headlines. Moorabool Shire Council has asked VCAT for a stay on an EPA order to clean up an illegal dumping site by the 25th of July. The matter was subject to a preliminary hearing on Wednesday. The Mayor Paul Tatchell says the tribunal gave the council a fair hearing as it argued the EPA should use its powers to remove illegally dumped containers. The tribunal's decision on the matter is expected next week. Veteran Marybeck councillor Oscar Yildiz has been suspended for a month over his social media activity. It comes after he liked Facebook comments that were critical of fellow councillors and the council itself. Independent arbiter Noel Harvey, OAM, ruled that Councillor Yildiz's conduct fell below the standard expected of a councillor. Insights from this latest arbiter decision with Tony Raunic later in today's episode. Yarra Ranges Council is disappointed with the state government's decision to retain the municipality within the kangaroo harvesting program's Gippsland harvesting zone. The council had formally requested the exclusion in May this year, but the Minister for Environment said analysis indicated a higher level of kangaroo harvesting activity in Yarra Ranges when compared to neighbouring councils. Rural Councils Victoria is taking steps to ensure transparency for ratepayers in relation to what they're calling an unfair new tax. The Emergency Services Volunteer Fund levy being imposed on the Victorian Government will be required to be collected from ratepayers by councils. RCV has created a template for rates notices that clearly identifies it as a government charge with a red box. Bull Oak Shire Council CEO Wayne O'Toole has resigned this week after 3.5 years in the role. He's leaving to take up a role in the not-for-profit sector. Interim arrangements are pending. Cam Arulanantham has been appointed as Frankston City Council's interim CEO for 6 months. That follows the recent resignation of Phil Cantillon. Cam has been the Director of Infrastructure and Operations at the council since 2020. And former Baw Baw Shire CEO Mark Dupay is heading back to work. He's been announced this week as the interim CEO for Berrigan Shire Council in New South Wales. Mr Dupay retired from Baw Baw late last year after more than 2 decades in the sector. And ballot packs are in the mail for the postal by-elections for North West Ward in Darebin and Layla Ward in Whittlesea. Voters should expect the material to arrive by the 22nd of July, and VEC is encouraging the return of ballots by 6 p.m. Friday the 1st of August. Voting is compulsory for state-enrolled voters as of the 21st of May. That's the latest VLGA Connect News headlines for you. Don't forget more news 3 times a week on the Local Government News Roundup on your podcast player, brought to you by the VLGA. Pleasure to have on the program today for the first time the Mayor of Campaspe Shire Council, Councillor Daniel Mackrell. Hello, Daniel. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Chris.
Thanks for coming on. We wanted to catch up with you and see how things are going there in Campaspe and your mayoral term. This is the first time as mayor for you, isn't it?
Yeah, first time mayor, third time term. So
yeah.
I've been around for a little bit, but first time as mayor.
Was being the mayor something you've been aspiring to over that time?
Yeah, it had been a while ago, but in this last time, I wasn't expecting to be allowed the opportunity, and my councillors have said, Daniel, yep, it's your turn to be mayor and help shape the Campaspe community. So it's fantastic.
How are you enjoying it?
I am really enjoying it, just starting to settle in to the role. It takes about 6 months to be able to work out really what the role is, but we've got a fantastic team, councillors and also executive and our organisation. So it's a great time to be a mayor.
Yeah, I've heard that said too. But by the time you get halfway through, you've just sort of really settled into the role and you know what you're doing. And then, of course, the clock's ticking down towards the end of the term. So you've got to make the most of it, don't you?
It is local government.
Yeah, indeed. So I wanted to talk to you about this zero tolerance policy and statement that's been developed at the council. It's attracted a bit of attention, and I think it was prompted by what your CEO described a few months ago as an escalation of abuse. Can you tell us from the councillor perspective what sorts of things were happening that made you think you needed to do this?
Well, we were always going to be able to put together a tolerance policy or statement. So what it is this is where we've come to. So the organisation has been working towards putting one together, and that's due to over the last few years, things have been getting a little bit more worse than what they should be.
Yeah.
When we're taking that, we've got staff and people, we all need to be treated with respect. And it's a two-way street, of course. But yeah, now we have it in place, a zero policy statement, which will be able to help our staff and those people that are interacting with us as well.
There's been a lot of talk about incivility, it's generally called, being on the rise against people in public life, not just local government, but other spheres as well, and overseas. You've felt that on the rise, obviously, in your neck of the woods, Daniel.
Yeah, and it is concerning, but what it is that we're all people and we have fantastic communities. So it's why it's doing that. And I know from a personal point of view, if you look at it, we have stresses in our life, and you add a little bit more stress, and then somebody goes, "I don't like this," and they'll go out of where they should of the norm. So, and that's where we need to make sure that we're within where we should be. And from my perspective, seeing the stats just with the Campaspe Shire over the last period, it is concerning. So by having this policy and statement in place, I think it will assist, because just some of the stats in the last 12 months, we've had 45 reports of verbal abuse, 2 reports of occupational violence, and there's 15 reports of harassment as well. So it is trending up. And with this emergency services fire levy, for an example, we are expecting to have a lot more, let's say, disgruntled people.
Yeah.
I've had more phone calls, some a little bit higher level, but still respectful, because they understand our role in that. But sometimes it can go too far.
Yeah, and some other mayors have made the point that you've just made about you can still have debates and conversations, but surely you can keep it respectful. Once you get to the abuse end of things, you've sort of lost the moral high ground, haven't you? But some are suggesting that this has become more common since the COVID-19 pandemic, that people have felt somehow more empowered to be keyboard warriors and in person, I guess, raise the temperature. Do you think that's right? You've been in the council for a while.
Yeah, I have. There has been a rise. That's why I don't jump on Facebook as much
Yeah.
anymore, because of those keyboard warriors. But what it is, it's about, if you look at our statement that we have, it's also about our staff feeling valued. And I think as councillors, we need to make sure that our organisation is safe, and other councillors around. We have a really, when we have our council meetings, for an example, we have good community, and in some other council meetings, it's not the same. But
Yeah.
because of the rise, we need to make sure that we have those processes and procedures in place. And this is one of those steps forward.
Those stats that you mentioned were very much, it seemed to me, sort of in-person examples. Is online abuse part of the issue that you're trying to address here as well?
I think it's all part of the mix, Chris, if you look at it. There's different mediums and different ways that they look at it. But in person is one of the majors. But online with Facebook and Instagram and all those other ones, people can express their views. But if it's for the right reason and it's done respectively, then it's okay. It's
Yeah.
when you go outside those boundaries is where we just have to make sure enough's enough, and we need to make sure that our community knows that, and this is what this does.
You mentioned all those other social media things. I've given up trying to keep up, Daniel. How many are you on? You mentioned Facebook, you don't go on very often, but what about all those others?
Well, for myself, I actually don't have a mayor Facebook page, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
that's really good.
yeah,
But in one way, my wife helps me monitor those things because she's a
yeah.
little bit more. And in my own business, for an example, I have my son that helps me out. So yeah, we just try and stay away from those things because it's all about the bigger picture. It's about helping people and it's about working together. Because the amount of services that our council does, there's over 100.
Mm.
We've got our customer service centres, there's libraries, local laws, you get those parking meter people out there. They have, a job to do, and it's, they're people.
Yeah, and they deserve to be able to do their job in a safe environment, don't they?
They do. And if everybody can work together, we know people do have bad days. This is not what this policy is for. It's about us being working together, having some dignity, and feeling safe.
In developing this policy statement, did you run into any issues, any challenges or resistance? How did you go about it?
Yeah, so there's a whole range of things in regards to their staff consultative committee, OH&S committee, so within the organisation, because they're our frontline staff. Our
Hmm.
councillors have had discussions as well because we too are human beings and we are part and parcel of the community and we're out and about. So we've had ours as well. But it's working together to making sure that it meets our requirements. And we also looked at other councils and what they do and what is occurring out there in the community.
Were there lots of other examples or just a few that you could look at for guidance?
Well, we've got the organisation to do most of that.
Yeah.
They did the heavy lifting on that because they're right there at the frontline staff. And then by us working with community as councillors, we sort of have a pretty good idea also.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
We've got
So
the
you're not
pulse.
really sure. Neither am I. I've seen a few, but not a lot. My sense is not everyone has one, but maybe we're all moving towards that space. How do you back this up, Daniel? What if these principles get breached? What's the position of the council in terms of responding to those now? And does it look any different from prior to having this statement in place?
Well, we've always had things, that we can disconnect if somebody's being a little bit one way or the other. But if you look at if there's consequences, and that's what you're sort of saying, Chris, is
Mm.
that if there are unreasonable or unacceptable behaviours, like our staff can terminate the call, they'll let
Mhm.
them know. If they're being unruly in a council meeting, we have processes in place so we can ask them to leave or call the police, for an example. Uh, we hope that doesn't happen, but in other councils, it has occurred. So we've just got to make sure that our staff are all safe. We can ban people. Doesn't happen very often, but if somebody is threatening to staff, well, we have those things in place as well.
What do you say to those who suggest that this might actually run counter to discouraging legitimate criticism or feedback?
I think what it is, it's about us working both ways. It's a two-way street, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So I believe in free speech, but done correctly. We are in a democracy and we need to make sure it's right. If somebody's being belligerent and being, threatening, we all know that's not the right thing to do. There is better ways to do that. And as a council, in my mayoral term, we are really listening to people. So, from my perspective, I really don't see the need for it, but I do understand that people can have a bad day or they've just cracked it
Mm.
and said, enough's enough. Something's happened in their day, the week, the month, the year, and things have been going on for a long term. But it is about us working together. So we've got some next steps for us because of the statement, and that's to help our staff become aware of what policy is, some more training, just how to respond and to manage those situations. I've come from a hospitality background, and we've done a lot in that awareness side of it, and there's ways to assist those people so it doesn't escalate as well.
Yeah, so some steps there in place to back up now the statement's in place. And what about longer term? Is there a review process built in or some sort of measurement of whether it's actually helped to tip the needle on these issues?
Yeah, so what it is that we always have that mechanism in place when there's a policy and statement. We'll have another look in 12 months, but there's a process to it. And I work closely with the CEO and so do the councillors. And so we get feedback on a regular basis. There's been no huge incidents, but we've had a few that, we need to work towards. And it is all about keeping our staff and community safe, Chris.
Yes. All right. And some of that's had some coverage in the local media. We don't need to regurgitate all of that here. Daniel, thank you so much for your time in explaining that. Best of luck as you move down this brave new path of that every council seems to be dealing with these days in terms of rising incivility. Our best to all there at Campaspe, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Great to speak with Councillor Mackrell there. Tony Raunic coming up very shortly, but I have a message for you from the VLGA. The VLGA Mayoral Leadership Program is on again. It's in its second year this year, designed to equip mayors and deputy mayors with the knowledge they need to lead their council effectively and with good governance at their foundation. It is now mandatory for mayors and deputy mayors to undertake training at the commencement of each mayoral term. Under the new government reforms, this training must be completed by the 31st of December. The VLGA's Mayoral Leadership Program will be held on Friday the 28th of November from 9:30am to 4:30pm at the Monash Conference Centre in Collins Street, Melbourne. A full-day program covering the roles and responsibilities of a mayor, the mayor-CEO relationship, how to chair a council meeting, managing difficult conversations, dispute resolution and effective communications, and media training. Now, places are already filling fast, so you need to register via the VLGA website as soon as you can. And if you book by August the 1st, you'll receive an additional 10% off listed prices. Head to vlga.org.au to find out more about the VLGA Mayoral Leadership Program for this year. Well, right now, Tony Raunic is joining us from Hunt and Hunt Lawyers for our semi-regular chat about things that are making news and happening around the sector. Hello, Tony. How have you been?
Really well, Chris. Really good. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. No shortage of things to talk about. I want to start with this week's decision at Marybeck, where an arbiter has given a ruling. This is Noel Harvey OAM that has resulted in Oscar Yildiz, one of the longest serving councillors there, being suspended for a month. And that's taken effect, I think, from yesterday, Thursday. It was tabled at Wednesday night's council meeting. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, interesting one, Chris. And I think it's a good one to talk about because it's really an authority, I think, to councillors around the use of likes on one's social media platform.
Right.
So this code of conduct matter arose out of a council meeting late in 2024, sort of early on in the term, when the Marybeck Council was appointing councillors to sit on various external bodies. And in one of the agenda items on the council meeting on the 11th of December was the passing of a governance report which had all these various appointments. And Councillor Pulford moved a motion that was seconded by Councillor Svensson that various appointments be made, including that Councillor Pulford be appointed as the Municipal Association of Victoria representative for the council.
Right.
Then Councillor Yildiz moved an amendment motion, seconded by Councillor Iwasaki, that essentially changed the appointment and had Councillor Yildiz to be appointed as the MAV representative for that year. Now, that motion actually was carried on an initial vote, but a division was called, and the motion was lost on a division when Councillor Iwasaki, who had been, as I said, the seconder of the amendment motion, actually voted against the amendment.
That's really interesting, just that piece, isn't it? Because you often see divisions called for. You don't that often see a decision reversed because someone's changed their vote, which just reminds people that a division is a new vote on the matter.
Absolutely. No compulsion to vote the way one voted, before the division. And as you say, that's what happened here. And then, of course, so the amendment was lost. And so we went back to the substantive motion, the original motion, which appointed Councillor Pulford. That was voted on, that was carried. And Councillor Yildiz was very unhappy. I think the arbiter decision reports him as being in an agitated state, and he left the council meeting at that point early on at, I think, about 8:20 p.m, when the meeting itself continued through to 9:40. So he left at 8:32 p.m, beg your pardon, didn't return despite the meeting continuing on until 9:40 p.m. without him. But within an hour of Councillor Yildiz leaving the meeting, there were a number of posts on his Facebook page that he made, or on his Facebook account that he made, criticising his councillor colleagues, particularly integrity of some councillors, accusing some individual councillors, Iwasaki and Abood, of lacking some integrity. And importantly then, Chris and viewers, those initial posts by Councillor Yildiz drew third-party comments.
Right.
And these were comments that then Councillor Yildiz either liked or further commented on, that became the subject of this application under the Model Councillor Code of Conduct. And to give you a flavour for the sort of language that was brought this arbiter hearing on, things like saying, "One thing I've learned, the word integrity and honesty seem to have different connotations to politicians." Accusations that particular party members, can't be trusted. They're not about the community. No need to reason with them because they're not reasonable, and that's a fact. What's really disturbing, disappointing and disgusting is, and then a particular councillor's name, so-and-so's dishonesty. How do I trust such individuals going forward? Please tell me. Here's another response from Councillor Yildiz to a comment, which is, "Mate, I can't believe the lack of integrity, honesty and respect. Nothing's changed on this council. You watch, there's more to come." And finally, "You're right, the nastiness and evilness of some was so evident last night." So those comments were referred to a code of conduct process by Councillor Iwasaki, and he alleged that himself and Councillor Abood had been targeted by Councillor Yildiz's initial post and his subsequent likes on his social media page, and that resulted in Councillor Iwasaki's professional reputation being seriously damaged. Councillor Yildiz, in response, said, he denied he had any intent to cite abuse or hostility. And importantly, Chris, what he said was that his likes on the social media, his likes were meant to acknowledge community engagement rather than endorse the contents of the comments. And he did reiterate an apology for his actions. But the decision by Noel Harvey, who's interestingly, a former councillor himself in that Central Highlands is Macedon area, former commissioner at Hepburn and Central Goldfields as an administrator, so very experienced in local government circles. The arbiter said that he was satisfied that Councillor Yildiz's comments and his likes demonstrated a breach of the Model Code of Conduct because there was a failure to treat councillors with that dignity, fairness, objectivity and respect that the code requires. And in particular, Mr. Harvey said he didn't agree with Councillor Yildiz's attempt to portray his likes as purely acknowledging community engagement. Noel Harvey said that when a user likes a post on Facebook, it serves as an expression of acknowledgement and agreement with the content of that post. A like indicates that the user has read, understood, and supports the message conveyed by the post. So a like is more than a casual click of acknowledgement. it's an aligning oneself with the ideas and opinions and sentiments that are expressed. So I think for councillors, this is really important, that we need to be very careful in our activities on social media, not just in what we post and write, but when we like a comment by another party, there will be a sense that we're endorsing the comment, we're
Yeah.
signalling our agreement with the comment. And certainly that's what the arbiter found here. And as a result, Councillor Yildiz has been found guilty of a breach of the Model Code of Conduct. He's suspended for a 1 calendar month period, and he must undertake some training on the proper use of social media, and isn't to comment on social media about council matters until he has undertaken that training.
So another example of what can be the perils of social media, great communication tool, great engagement tool, but this is another decision, I think, Tony, that sort of adds to the body of advice on how to appropriately navigate that very complex space.
Yeah, it does. And when you think about how I'm not a big social media person. LinkedIn's my social media account, and that's
Mm.
it, Chris. But um, we might in our sort of private um, activities on social media see, oh, there's a post from my sister or my mate. I'll just automatically like that. They're my friend. I'm going to like their comments, their posts, because we're friends. When one's in this position as an elected councillor, you need to be really careful to read what you're liking,
Yes.
read what you're seen as endorsing. Is it appropriate? Rather than just, is this a friend of mine? Is this someone that I follow? This someone who's a supporter of mine? I'll automatically engage and like their comments.
All right, thanks for that analysis, Tony. As I said, that report was tabled at the council's meeting on Wednesday night. The suspension took effect yesterday, Thursday, and it is, as you said, for 1 month. Another significant decision since we last spoke that we need to touch on, and that is the granting of a personal intervention order, personal safety intervention order in favour of the Mayor of Stonnington, Councillor Melina Sear, against Dean Hurlston, the President of Council Watch. What do we need to take away from this decision, Tony?
Well, I think that what this decision highlights is that there is a difference between fair political comment, including comment that's critical, even satirical, even humorous about an elected official like a councillor, versus commentary that it's in the nature of harassment. It's personal, it's malicious, it's vindictive, and that's certainly the distinction that the magistrate drew in this matter, looking at the evidence of a sustained campaign of posts and social media commentary and activities by Mr. Hurlston in relation to Councillor Sear, derogatory comments, doctored images, even an admitted use of an email alias in emails to Councillor
Right.
Sear, falsely claiming that that to be a non-existent media organisation, and even in a contact with Councillor Sear's employer that resulted in her termination. So the magistrate Michelle Hodgson, her findings were that the nature, frequency, and persistence of those communications by Mr. Hurlston caused it to lose its political character. Um, Despite Mr. Hurlston saying that these were, comments were part of fair, political commentary and activism, there was ample evidence that, in fact, it was ill will, spite, and animosity, and the personal malice couldn't be concealed under this superficial veneer of political discourse or public interest journalism. So there's a clear line between the ability of members of the public, community organisations, more broadly, anyone to comment, including commentary in the media and on social media about the activities of a council or indeed an individual councillor, and to be critical. But when that becomes a focused personal pile-on, particularly when you're citing personal characteristics of a person, then that will be seen as akin to harassment. And the order here is a 2-year personal safety intervention order, Chris, which prohibits specifically Mr. Hurlston from engaging in this sort of harassing conduct over those 2 years. And they're very sort of significant sanctions to breach a personal safety intervention order, including potential imprisonment. So it's a very sort of severe, a very onerous position to be in.
All right, thanks again for those insights. I just want to say a couple of words about just this broader issue of incivility. You might have heard my chat earlier in the show with Daniel Mackrell at Campaspe, where they've developed a zero tolerance statement for antisocial behaviour and abuse, because like everywhere, it's been on the rise. The VLGA put out a statement earlier this year calling on the government and other peak bodies to work with it in funding and implementing programs to combat the incivilities being experienced in the sector, particularly by women councillors, and condemned any conduct which leads to any individual or group of individuals feeling unsafe or threatened. It's an ongoing battle, this broader issue, Tony, and we just need to keep it front and centre, I think, when we can. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's societal in a way, and it's we have to rail against it, because it's not only is it impacting on those people who put their hand up and put themselves in that position to serve the community as an elected official, but I think it would also be a reason why people choose not to run for council, or choose to only do that for a short period and step away.
You're right on that last point. There's evidence just recently in New Zealand as well as in the UK, where surveys have come out showing the number of people who are actually thinking twice about continuing or even putting their hand up in the first place because of these issues that are being experienced. All right, thank you, Tony. You might have seen that Moorabool Shire Council has been to VCAT this week. There was a preliminary hearing on Wednesday. The council is arguing that the EPA should use its powers to remove some illegally dumped containers that are on, as I understand it, Crown land that is managed by the council. The mayor there, Paul Tatchell, has said this is a bit of a test case that other councils should be watching. Depending on the outcome, there could be implications more broadly for the sector. You're keeping an eye on that one too?
Yeah, have been, Chris, and that, as you say, went to the court on the 9th for sort of preliminary hearing. And what the Moorabool Shire Council representatives sought at that hearing was a stay of the order that the EPA had brought against council to clean up this industrial waste. And VCAT have gone away to consider whether or not to grant that stay, and I believe that we're expecting a decision on that by the 17th of July. The hope that council have is that if a stay is granted, the EPA may well use its statutory power under Section 294 of the EPA Act to actually remove the industrial waste. These are containers of industrial waste now, because under that particular section, Section 294, where the EPA considers that there is an immediate and serious risk of human harm or harm to the environment, the EPA can themselves, undertake the cleanup, and that's I think the desire that the council have, and the concern being that councils are the manager of huge tracts of land across municipalities, and for the council then to be, responsible for the removal of every element of waste on, parcels of land that are in fact owned by, in this case, state government or elements of state government, be it Parks Victoria or somewhere like that, I'm not sure here, then it is an enormous burden on the council. I think estimate here $800,000 to do the cleanup.
It's not insignificant.
And for a semi-rural shire like Moorabool, enormous. 800,000 could repair a lot of roads. Provide a lot of community programs.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a significant percentage of their overall budget, a shire like that, 800,000. All right, we'll watch that one with interest. As you say, a decision apparently is due next Thursday, the 17th of July, and hopefully we'll have that to report on next week's edition of VLGA Connect. Thank you, Tony. Great to see you as always. Have a great week.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you soon. Tony Raunic from Hunt and Hunt Lawyers. That's almost it for VLGA Connect this week. A quick reminder about the Global Executive Live panel coming up on the 22nd of July from 5:30 p.m. on the subject of the local economy and council's role in fostering that. We have a terrific panel lined up. You can find out more on the VLGA events page and book your place there. It will be great to see you online on the 22nd of July. Thanks again to my guests today, Daniel Mackrell, the Mayor of Campaspe Shire, and of course Tony Raunic from Hunt and Hunt Lawyers, our terrific sponsors here at VLGA Connect. We look forward to joining you again with more next week at this time here on the YouTube channel and on your podcast player. Until then, bye for now.